Hi, I'm Dakota. I was greatly influenced by my favorite writer, Mona Frey. When I was a kid, I was her biggest fan and I knew all of her books by heart. My favorite was 100 Good Deeds. It was a fairy tale about a girl changing the world for the better by doing, you guessed it, 100 good deeds. I was so inspired by it that I decided to follow the example of that girl. Ever since then, I had been selflessly helping people and keeping a list of all my good deeds. I even tried to help my sister. Irene was a pain in the butt. Still, I held on to hope that my sister would change for the better. One day, a boy named Tommy moved in next door to us. Oh, his eyes were like two shining diamonds. My sister and I both immediately fell for him. We often played together, and I thought that Tommy had a crush on me too. But one day, I realized that I was just third-wheeling them. Tommy wrote me a note to say he wanted to ask Irene out. Soon after that, they became an item and forgot all about me. That broke my heart. I wasn't mad though, just happy for my sister. But then, Tommy moved to another city. Irene was devastated, and I gave her all my toys to cheer her up. Years passed, and we went to high school. My list of good deeds kept growing. I was dating my classmate Gerald, who was on the soccer team, and he was also pretty popular. The same couldn't be said for Irene. She practically had no friends. It's all because I don't have a perfect body like yours. Irene was always making excuses for herself. I knew that no one wanted to be friends with her because she was a huge gossip and a bore. However, I didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I kept my mouth shut. One day, we were told to write an essay about a person that inspired us. I was over the moon, and I immediately thought about my favorite author. It would be so cool if I could meet and interview her. Unfortunately, Mona Frey hadn't written a single book in the last 10 years. She had no socials, and no one knew where she was or what happened to her. There's practically no info about her online. I wasn't about to give up that easily, though. Gerald came up to me when I was walking down a hallway lost in thought. Dakota, I need to pass this chemistry test or they won't let me out on the field. My future depends on this match. Oh, don't worry, I'll help you. Thank you. You're a lifesaver. He beamed at me and left, and another classmate of mine immediately asked me for help. I brought my ferret into school and he ran away. If someone sees him, I'll be in a world of trouble. I promised I would help her find her pet. The girl cheerfully skipped away, and I realized the janitor was looking at me with a frown. You're too kind, girl. People might take advantage of you. I showed him my list of good deeds and said that I was just trying to make the world a better place. You should take care of yourself before thinking about anyone else. He shook his head bitterly, and I started looking for my classmate's ferret. I found someone else, though. I turned around the corner and I bumped into some guy. Bam! We both fell to the floor. Is this how you welcome all new students? Wait, Dakota? How do you know my name? I took a closer look at the new guy and realized I did know him. It was Tommy, the guy who I used to have an elephant-sized crush on. My heart fluttered. He was even more gorgeous now. We sat on the floor for a long time, just staring each other down. I was all but drooling. Gerald's menacing shout brought us back down to earth. Hey, that's my girlfriend. Get your hands off her. Oops. I quickly got up and told my boyfriend I was just showing the new guy around. And then a ferret jumped on my shoulder. I smiled at Tommy again and I left to find the pet's owner. After classes, I walked out of school and saw Irene. She was sitting on the stairs and crying her eyes out. I thought she was just being a drama queen like usual. Hey, come on, cheer up. You won't believe who I just saw. It was Tommy. He transferred to our school. You could go out with him again. My words just made her cry harder. I saw him too, and I know we'd make a great couple, but he's such a cruel jerk. He said I wasn't his type anymore and called me an uggo. She wiped away her tears and a devilish light appeared in her eyes. Dakota, I know how much you like to help everyone. Well, I'm your poor little sister. Get back at Tommy for me. She suggested that I hang out with him to find his weak spot and then stab him in the back. Well, figuratively, of course. Getting revenge wasn't my style, so I told her I wouldn't do it. Besides, I had other things to worry about. For example, I still couldn't figure out how to find Mona Frey. She was such a successful writer. Why did she vanish without a trace? I was walking home when I came upon a crying woman. Of course, I couldn't just walk by without asking her what happened. Things just keep going from bad to worse today. First, my boss said he'd fire me if I didn't bring him in a good story. And now I've lost my wallet and I can't even get home. I felt sorry for her and I gave her some money so she could buy a bus ticket. Are you really just gonna give money to a stranger? I calmly told her I just wanted to make the world a better place and I showed her my list. The woman read it carefully and beamed. This is exactly exactly what I need. She said she was a journalist and she wanted to interview me. Well, why not? I agreed and came to her studio the next day. She filmed me as I spoke about the writer that inspired me and all the people I'd already helped. Thanks to you, I got to keep my job. As soon as I edit the video, the interview will go on air. She got to work, and I called Gerald and suggested we prepare for the chemistry test together. To my disappointment, he said he had practice. You won't be allowed to play if you fail the test, though. You won't let that happen, will you? Oh, okay, I'll think of something. I spent the evening cramming and listening to Irene whine. She kept begging me to put Tommy in his place. Will you teach that bastard a lesson? Please? You're kind, aren't you? Holy mother of cows. I had to pretend I fell asleep so she'd leave me alone. The next morning, it turned out none of my classmates had bothered to prepare for the test. They expected me to do everything for them. What the heck? The nerve of them. Dakota, we know we can always count on you. Please help us. Everyone stared at me with puppy dog eyes, and I couldn't say no. I had to spend the entire lesson writing the correct answers and passing notes to my classmates. In the end, everyone nailed the test. Everyone except me. I simply didn't have enough time to write down anything. I don't even know what upset me more. My first ever F or the fact that my classmates clearly couldn't care any less about my problems. That dampened my mood. The school janitor noticed it and shook his head again. I told you things wouldn't end well. That was the last straw for me. I was about to snap at him when I heard crying. The sound was coming from the closet. I looked inside and I wasn't even surprised when I saw Irene there. Tommy said he would never date someone who looks like a donut. What a dirtbag. At that moment, something in me snapped. I exploded like a pressure cooker and I decided I wouldn't let anyone hurt my sister, no matter how insufferable she was. Okay, let's do it. Irene jumped for joy and almost knocked me out with a bear hug. I spent the next few days talking to Tommy and trying to figure out how to teach that buttface a lesson. To be honest, he seemed like a nice guy. Why had he been such a jerk to Irene? He did have a massive crush on her when we were kids. One day, I was rereading my favorite book at recess when Tommy sat down next to me. He said that he liked Mona Frey's books too, and I told him that I wanted to interview her for my essay, but I have no idea where to find her. There's no info about her anywhere. I think I can actually help you with that. It turned out his uncle was a private detective. Finding people was a piece of cake for him. So Tommy gave me Mona Frey's address the very next day. She apparently lived by herself next to a forest. I know where that is. Let's go there together. Usually, I was the one helping everyone, so I was very grateful to him for being there for me. We had a lot of fun together during the trip. He was a riot. My promise to hurt Tommy kept bringing me down. To be honest, the more we talked, the less I wanted to set him up. He was so kind and caring that I remembered why I'd fallen head over heels in love with him as a kid. No, I couldn't think about that. He hurt my sister and he would pay for it. As if he'd read my thoughts, Tommy suddenly told me something that I could use against him. You know, I always try to seem carefree, but my family has serious problems. Dad's competitor wants to kill his business. He told me a bit about the competitor and added that he hated him. After all, if his parents' company went bust, they would have to move again. Well, I found out Tommy's weak spot. Now it was time to figure out how to use it. Before I could figure that out, we arrived. To be honest, I expected my favorite writer to live in a beautiful castle. What we saw instead was a gloomy house surrounded by a thicket. I felt goosebumps all over my body and even thought we might have had the wrong address. But then the door creaked open and we saw Mona Frey. Who are you and what are you doing here? I'm Dakota and I'm a huge fan of yours. I tried to explain that I wanted to interview her for my school essay and even said her book had been inspiring me to help people for many years. See how much I've done already? It's all thanks to you. Ugh, you blubbering idiot. I used to be a moron just like you, but everyone around me just used me and treated me like a doormat. I don't believe in any of that nonsense or write silly fairy tales anymore. Now get lost. With those words, she slammed the door in our faces, and it felt like my whole world came crushing down. Was everything I believed in actually nonsense? I had no choice but to take off my rose-colored glasses when I accidentally overheard my classmates calling me naive behind my back. I'm only dating her to cheat off her. I know, right? Dakota doesn't know how to say no. It's so easy to use her. What? They had been taking advantage of me? At that moment, something in me broke. I stormed into the classroom, gave everyone a piece of my mind, and broke up with Gerald on the spot. After that, I threw my dumb list in the trash and told the janitor he'd been right. Being kind in our cruel world is a fool's errand. I'm not gonna repeat my mistakes. I found my sister, and I told her I would trash the car of the competitor Tommy had told me about and frame him. Irene and I tried to get into the closed parking lot, but my sister wasn't thin enough to slip through the bars. Is this the only way in? Just stay here. I'll take care of it. I scratched the car and left a note with Tommy's name on it. I wanted the car's owner to think that Tommy was avenging his father. The mission went off without a hitch. The next day at school, Tommy was gloomier than ever. The police had already talked to him. Someone set me up. But why? I haven't hurt anyone. Irene burst into laughter. Dakota did it. She took revenge on you for rejecting me when we were kids. And this year again. Irene, are you serious right now? I told you a long time ago I only like you as a friend. Dakota, how could you do something so messed up? I fell in love with you for your kindness. What? When we were kids, you left me a note saying you liked Irene. What are you talking about? I didn't. You're the one who wrote that I disgusted you. That's why I stopped hanging out with you before we moved. He said he didn't want to see me anymore and left. I pounced on my sister. Care to explain yourself? She smiled guiltily and admitted that she envied me when we were kids. When she found out that Tommy had a thing for me, she wrote us both fake notes. She was afraid that I would find out about it after Tommy came back, so she stood in the way of our happiness again. Oh, I guess I really was a naive fool. How could I believe Irene and frame Tommy? Fuming for the first time in my life, I told my sister everything I thought of her. All you do is gossip and envy me, you snake. That's why no one wants to be friends with you. How could you say that? I'm never talking to you again. She ran away in tears and kept her promise. From that day on, Irene didn't even look in my direction and completely ignored me. I told the owner of the car that I scratched Tommy had nothing to do with it, and I even paid for the repairs. Luckily, he dropped the charges, but Tommy didn't forgive me. That's how I lost not only my faith in the power of kindness, but also everyone that was dear to me. Soon, the interview in which I talked about my list was broadcast. That reporter thanked me again for helping her keep her job, but I didn't care about any of that. I was done with being kind. Imagine my surprise when I realized I had inspired other people. The next day, my classmates came up to me and apologized for the things they said behind my back. I'm sorry we used you and said all that nasty stuff. You've had our backs so many times. Whatever, it's in the past. After that, they changed for the better. One day, I saw Mona Frey make a speech. She said that she had been inspired by a girl that helped other people no matter what. Dakota, you've restored my faith in everything good in this world. That's why I'm dedicating my new book to you. Wow, she was talking about me. Soon after that, Irene came up to me and thanked me for opening her eyes. Hearing your words hurt, but then I realized you were right. I'm gonna become the best version of myself. Even the janitor changed his mind. Look, I started helping stray animals. By the way, I found something. Isn't this yours? He took my crumpled list of good deeds out of his pocket and handed it to me. I gently pressed it to my heart. Tears of happiness stung my eyes. My life had meaning again. I realized that it's impossible to change the world alone, but you can lead by example. Apparently, Tommy realized it too, because one day he came up to me and showed me a piece of paper. I decided to make my own list. Let's make the world a better place together. He finally forgave me. Tell me what you think of my story in the comments. If you want to do something good too, then press like and subscribe to Private Diary. That would really help the channel.